Hello again. Here we are to continue talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what I'd like to do is follow up the videos that I created previously that worked on some JavaScript and created this simple timer app. And what I'd like to do is talk about some of the styles that you might use to solve the challenge that I presented in the last couple videos, right? So the first thing we got to understand is this is our well, first let's review the project, right? So here's our project here, and it's just a simple HTML page. It's really only got 2 HTML elements in it, really 3, I guess, if you count the button. So there's an H1 and a paragraph, and the paragraph has a button inside. And then below there's a script tag, and that's pretty much the bottom of the page. So this is the entire project here. It's pretty simple, right? And if we see it in the browser, let me refresh it here. You'll see the time shows up here when we click the button, and then it stops when we pause the button, right? So this is the button here. It's inside a paragraph tag, and this is the H1. So let's talk about positioning and sizing and working with blocks on the screen. Okay. So what do we have here? Let's take a quick look, right? This is the same document that I have here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect it in the browser here. I'm in, oops, I didn't mean to print there. I want to inspect, right? So I'm in Safari, but this works the same in Chrome, okay? And it's a little different, but it's almost the same in Firefox also. So here I am in the inspector. And in Safari, I'm going to use this metrics or box model thing here to talk about how these things are sized and positioned. And if you don't see that, you'll need to go up here and choose computed styles, okay? So anyway, so here's my DOM there, and I have the body tag, and when I open it up, I have the H1, okay? So elements on the screen, or tags that you create here that get drawn into the body tag or into the browser window, they come in 2 varieties. There's really a few more, but the 2 that you see most often are either inline or block. Okay, so inline elements are like text, and when you see text on a page in a document, all the words line up left to right, and then when they get to the end of the page, or when the space runs out, they wrap onto the next line, and then they continue across again. Okay, that's inline. Okay. The other option is block. Okay, so blocks you can think of them as boxes on the screen. Okay, and these are big blocks of stuff, and they can contain text and pictures and whatnot. Okay, a block follows these rules for how it's displayed. Okay, now I'm going to hover over the H1, and you can see the blue area up there, right around the text, right? Okay. You can see it expands to go all the way across the page, okay? And what you're seeing is a block. So the blue area is the height and the width of this H1. So the H1 by default displays as a block, okay? So blocks by default expand to fill their container. So they're 100% the width of their container by default, okay? And then they're as tall as the content that they contain. So this block right here is as tall as the number 16. If I had 2 or 3 or 4 lines of text, then it would be taller. If there was no text inside this block, then it would be 0 tall, but it would still be as wide as the container. Okay, so let that sink in for a minute. So blocks are 100% wide, but they're only as tall as they need to be. Okay. So what do we have down here? Let's go to the paragraph. Oh, look, paragraph is a block also. It's as tall as the contents, and it's as wide as the container. So it's as wide as the area that it fits in, but it's only as tall as the content that it has here, okay? So what's the orange area? So the orange area is margin. And by default, the H1 and the paragraph tag both have margin at the top and the bottom. Okay, they don't have margin on the left and right, okay? But they have margin at the top and bottom. And margin is a little bit weird, okay? because it's a little hard for me to show this here, but look at the margin in this area between the number here and the button, okay? So just this area. And what you'll see is that these two margins overlap, okay? And what we're getting is we're actually getting the larger of the two. So the H1 has a larger margin, so that's the one that we see. Normally margins push things apart, and when they're horizontal margins, when they meet left and right, you'll get the total space of the two margins, but when they meet vertically, you only get the larger of the two. So you can think of that as like the rule is that vertical margins collapse. Even though they don't really collapse, they overlap is the way I like to think about it, okay? So these two overlap, and we just get the largest, okay? So you're probably wondering then, like, why is there some space here around the outside? Like, why do I have that white space on the left and the right, and then the space at the top, there is none, right? Okay, so what is that? Well, the body tag has 8 pixels of margin, right, all the way around the outside. So here you can see the body tag is as tall as the content, as wide as the window, and then the orange area is about 8 pixels of margin all the way around the outside. Now the margin at the top looks a little weird because the H1 has the larger of the two margins, so we get that one rather than the 8 pixels from the body tag, okay? I know it's a little weird. You just have to work with it for a bit and then you'll catch on, okay? The inspector has this little area here called the box model. Sometimes they call it metrics, okay? And this shows you the box model. So the box model is a little more complicated than what I just described there, okay? So how does it work? Well, this area inside here represents the height and the width of something. So this is the height and width of the H1. It's 704 pixels wide by 37 tall. And then inside this area here, this green area, is padding. So padding actually would fit inside the blue area, okay, and it would push outward. And then we have border. So this yellow area is border, and then the margin is the orange area here. So it's telling me that, I have 0 padding, 0 border, 0 margin on the left and right, 21 something pixels margin at the top and bottom, and then the size of the element is 704 by 37, okay? So what does that mean? Well, let's play with this for a bit, right? So how do you center something on the screen? Everybody asks that, right? That's like a first thing. So, and you could put this style sheet anywhere you want, but just to keep the example together, I'm going to put a style tag in the head here, and then I'll just add my styles directly to the page. So let's style the H1. So the first thing that people usually do is they do this. They say, text align center. Okay, so I'll do that. And I'll save it, and then I'll refresh. Now you'll see the text is, it's in the middle, right? But really what's happening here is the text is displaying in the middle of the box. So the box is the blue area. When we do text align center, the text goes to the middle of the blue area, okay? So what if we gave the H1 a width? What if we say width of 400 pixels, okay? Now, when I refresh it, the text isn't quite in the middle anymore. You'll see down here that the box model is telling me the width of the H1 is 400. And when I, hover over it here, you can see that it's got, the blue area there is 400 wide, and the text is in the middle of the blue area. But that's not really helping us because maybe I want this to be, 400 wide. Maybe I don't even want it to be 400. I want it to be more like 3, right? And then maybe I want it to have a background color of, kind of a light gray. How about that, right? And what I want is I want this gray box to be in the middle. Okay, so text align center will align your text in the middle of its container, right? So that affects something that's inline. But for a block level element, like text align center doesn't do anything, right? There's no property to say like center for a block, okay? So to center a block on the page, what you're going to do is this usually, okay? You're going to say margin auto, okay? So when I say margin auto in this form, What I'm saying is I'm saying that the top, left, right, and bottom, like all four sides, the margin on all four sides of my object are all set to auto, okay? And when you set the margin on the left and right to auto, you get this. Oh, look, it's in the middle, right? Why is it in the middle? Well, the margin on the left and right here, you can see it's 202, okay, right? So what does that mean, right? Auto margin, like I didn't set the margin to 202, right? What happened when I set the margin to auto? The left and right margins are calculated to be an equal value. Okay, so the browser finds the width of this element, right? And then it divides the leftover space, right? Because normally it would go the whole width of the container. It finds the leftover space here and it puts an equal amount on each side as margin, and then that moves the box to the middle. Okay? So this only works if you give the box a width. So if we don't give the box a width, and then I do margin auto, like nothing's going to happen, right? And essentially if I don't give it a width, my box is going to expand to fill the container, and our margin auto is just going to do nothing or put zero margin on the left and right. Let's try that, right? Yeah, so the text is in the middle, but the box is no longer 400 wide, right? So there's your simple formula there, okay? Let me do this, right? Right, to center something on the screen, or to center a block by setting the width and margins left and right to auto. Okay, so essentially you have to set the width to something, and then you can set the left and right margin to auto. You'll notice here, I said I was setting all four sides margin to auto, and that's true. When you set the top and bottom to auto, it doesn't do anything really. It just sets them to 0. It doesn't it doesn't do the same thing. So centering something vertically is another trick, right? You can't do it this way, okay? But anyway, that gets you started. Hopefully that helps you center things on the screen, and there's kind of a lot you can do with this. I'm going to do some more in the next video, okay?